So let's kick it off. For our last speaker, we are joined by Brad Barron. Brad is the Director of Marketing for the Pet Division at Purdue Farms. So I guess this final session could be a dog and pony food show, or at least one that we've been waiting for. And it's going to be moderated by Sara Ben-Ezra, who is the Head of Customer Success at Zeotap. Welcome to the stage, Brad and Sara. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I'm super excited to be here today. As Matt said, I'm Sara Ben-Ezra. I head up customer success at Zeotap. We are a global customer intelligence platform, and our mission is to help brands better understand their customers on a one-to-one. Super excited to be talking to Brad Barron today. Just to introduce Brad, Brad is the Director of Brand and Marketing at Purdue Farms, where he is responsible for the pet portfolio of brands Full Moon and Spot Farms. Here, he is focused on helping modern pet parents provide premium human-grade treats and food to their fur families that help them lead happier, healthier lives. Prior to joining Purdue Farms in 2020, Brad worked for over 10 years in various product development and brand management roles at SC Johnson, The Honest Company, and Beach House Group. Brad, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, just off the bat, super excited to talk about all things pet food. I'm so jealous that you have somehow managed to include fur families in your bio. I think that's really aspirational. In terms of the pet division at Purdue Farms, can you just kind of lay it out for us? Tell us what you're all working on there. What products are you in charge of?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of a fun little team out here on the West Coast. We're a little bit separate from the in Maryland. So it's a small team, just about 5 of us here in Venice, and we're in pet. So we have 2 brands, one called Full Moon, the other Spot Farms. And we basically just sell dog treats. A little bit of food as well, but have kind of started and grown through the treat business, the treat category, and offer human grade treats. I think that's our biggest point of difference in the market. Is everything we do is human grade. We eat the treats ourselves throughout the product development process. So we know it's good and test it well. So make sure we all test our own products.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of the cool things on your website is seeing like the dog, an image of the dog and a human biting into the same treat. I'm glad to hear that this is kind of not just a dog and pony show, so to speak, but you're actually truly trying to deliver something human grade.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
So can you?
And I think. Oh, go ahead, Sara.
No, keep going. Sorry.
I was just going to talk a little bit about like the Purdue relationship and how grade aspect as well. So, I mean, having of Purdue and kind of starting with our founder Ryan Purdue, who's in the Purdue. I think it's always been important for us closely on our brand and. We represent Purdue out in the marketplace in pet. And
yeah, that's super great. Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this as we were introducing ourselves to each other, and I actually realized not to one up the Kellogg's people, but I too have some product items here too. But we were talking about that. I have a pet. I use Full Moon, but I didn't even realize the connection to Purdue. I don't know if it's just I'm bad at reading the bag or like. If this was, as you mentioned, a little bit intentional. And I also only knew about the treats because of that they're low-cal. I didn't know about the human grade. I mean, after talking to you, I felt better about my decision in my treat buying. But can you talk to me a bit more about that type of marketing and what went in for both not using the Purdue brand, and then also doubling down on human grade and what that actually means?
I'm relatively new to the organization. I started in April, so there's a lot of history behind kind of whether or not to use the Purdue brand on our package. It's a two-way conversation of how does the Purdue benefit us? There's a trust factor when you do. I think the other thing so there's a little bit of happen between us and the Purdue team to make sure that it's beneficial both ways. And so right now it's a little bit more of a subtlety on our site, and you can kind of dig into it a little bit more. It's not super prominent, but it's an ongoing conversation we're having, because we know that as a human grade brand, speak that message more clearly and have that consumer kind of make the connection between Purdue and Full Moon. So something we're looking at and thinking through as we build out our D2C business, and how we kind of talk about that on our website. We're also in the process of updating a lot of our about telling human grade story as we could be, and so we're building things out like charts that show kind of what our treats, what human grade really means in terms of both the ingredients and the processes that we use, versus kind of the other ingredients. And so that not the space and about the benefits is the depth of feed grade food.
So in terms of, I guess, the dog food world, is human grade like the highest? Is that what I'm looking for? Is that like the organic, free range, GMO, whatever other buzzword I need to look for when I'm shopping for myself?
Yeah, human grade is definitely kind of the top of the line, just because it's not just about the ingredients, but it is about the processing. When you look at feed grade, there's the meat falling on the floor, and then it's like picked back up and sold off to pet companies to kind of turn that into dog food. So I think human grade is a big one. Another thing is that you mentioned the animal welfare claims, like organic, cage free. Those are growing in popularity. And I think that in general, like, we're just trying to do a good job educating people on what those things. There's their definitions is clearly defined, and so we're definitely striving for the top quality. And we're kind of moving. That can proper.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and that's also what I look for as a pet owner. Can you talk to me a bit? I guess this kind of fits in nicely with the education piece. Like, obviously, if you have an animal or anything, really, a child, anything yourself, we Google everything. So can you just like walk me through is how this like e-commerce digital world, especially now with COVID, how is that fitting into or nicely syncing with the education piece of dog food and dog treats, and are you seeing a shift, or has it always been there in terms of purchasing digitally, or do people go to like Petco, or what's kind of the shift that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I mean the shift, the purchase channel is like moving every day, it seems like, and during COVID, everybody saw e-commerce pick up, and for but a chewy to consumer. So I think, we're seeing thing is obviously from retail to e-commerce, and that was accelerated during COVID, but it's a trend that's been going on for, 5 to 10 years now in the pet space. So important that we have a D2C channel for a lot of the same reasons. It's about having a relationship with our consumers on their journey. You just mentioned Google and making we're showing up in research, buying for their pet ownership has boomed, and so many people who are doing that research now because and so we're more about our research products for.
Brad, did I lose you? Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me?
Awesome. All part of the digital experience. Yep.
Of course.
So I guess going off of the online, and you kind of mentioned a few channels. So like I think Chewy is like the Amazon of the dog world. Can you talk to me a bit more about how you guys are viewing channels? Are you starting to think about making your own e-commerce channel that would feed in nicely with Purdue? What's kind of like the thought process there?
Yeah, for sure. So as we have our own D2C platform, it really kind of comes down to media mix and how we think through that. So we want to make sure we're not competing with some of our e-commerce platforms like Chewy and Amazon. So I think when you look at search, especially, that's where we're being really careful. We want to make sure that we're keeping our customer acquisition costs down and we're not competing with essentially ourselves out there. So I think that's a big thing is like branded keywords. We're thinking really carefully about whether it makes sense to go after that, knowing that Chewy is bidding pretty aggressively on those things. Chewy about what is the best strategy and should they be bidding on those brand keywords or should we? I think that's an ongoing conversation and something we're learning as we're super early in this D2C phase. We launched our own site in December of last year, so it's only been about 10 months, and we're kind of learning along the way to figure out how does our media mix come to life and how do we make sure we're driving our customer acquisition costs down as low as we can and making sure we're not competing with some of our friendly e-tail sites.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's definitely a tricky situation or like you have to think through kind of all your tactics there in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
And in terms, we talked about this before when you were telling me about, your kind of ideal and your key customers, which is like you described me basically. But can you tell me like, how are you engaging with these people? Like, is it through the channels I would think like Instagram or TikTok or what's your kind of thought process here?
Yeah, primarily we're delving into the social world. So Facebook and Instagram are kind of our key acquisition channel. It's kind of our key acquisition channel for now. We're dabbling with influencers. We're starting to pick up on search a little bit more. We've been doing some kind of fun experiments. The cool thing about being a part of a large organization who's trying to figure out D2C is getting to kind of play around. And we did a fun little like Twitch partnership with a gamer who actually has a dog, and his fans can actually feed treats to his dog throughout his live stream. And so we sponsored him. We had the full moon branded treats out there. It was just a fun kind of thing that we're experimenting with. I'll tell you, like, the payback wasn't really there. We probably won't do it again for a while, but it was kind of fun. And it's, even the cool theme that I've heard today is like, the crossover between D2C and retail. And one of the things that we try to illustrate to our retail partners is we reach a younger audience. And part of the way we do that is through social, and engaging with people on Twitch is really cool because we can bring that into a retail meeting and say, hey, look what we're doing to connect with the younger audience, the people who you want in your store. And we're kind of forward thinking, and we're trying out these new platforms that maybe some of the other kind of slower to innovate or slower to become digital brands, they're not doing that.
Yeah, and I think what you just said there is key. Like, you guys might not have figured out 100% the channels or the tactics. Like you said, you're still young, you're still experimenting and learning, but knowing your audience, and especially your core audience, I mean, that's half the battle. That's what brands are, spinning their wheels on, tapping into first party data. I mean, I see this every day, but really trying to understand who that key demographic is. And it's awesome that you already kind of know that and have that on lock.
Yeah. I mean, it's clear to us, like in the Mintel reports that come out around pet, that the millennial consumer who's bringing pets into the home right now, they're just so much more discerning on the products that they buy. They want products that they can understand where the ingredients are coming from, that they can understand is a healthy choice for their pets, that is organic or human grade. I think, we positioned ourselves that way 7 years ago, and we've kind of grown into a really nice space that the younger consumer is really gravitating towards. So, I mean, for Ryan, our founder, to kind of see that and know that, this was a space that was not being fulfilled by the brands that were currently there, I think showed a lot of foresight and is kind of coming to fruition now.
Yeah, definitely. And then you kind of mentioned, I want to just circle back on something. You mentioned working with influencers. Are these human influencers or dog influencers? It's kind of this strategy there.
Yeah, it's a mix of both, right? There's a ton of dog influencers out there. And we partner with both. I mean, obviously their accounts are run by humans. So, we're interacting with the owners, but yeah, it's been super fun. We're doing it in a much more organic way. We have a platform we use that helps us engage with a lot of different influencers, sending them product and getting them to post on our behalf for that product. I think that's kind of how we're starting. We'd love to kind of explore paid ways of engaging with them in the future as our business grows and our budgets grow. But for now, it's really on the organic side, and just cultivating relationships with them, understanding, more about what they're looking for in pet treats and pet food, and being able to reach new audiences through them.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. And I mean, you have the extensive background in CPG, but I feel like, just thinking dogs and pets, like all of a sudden everyone like perks up and is happy and excited. Have you found that also in terms of beyond just influencer marketing, but just like engaging with the brand?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we have this huge of having pets in everything we do. And it's always kind of a positive thing for people. And so, yeah, I mean, engagement on social tends to be super high when pets are featured. And that's definitely benefited us, but it benefits everybody in the pet space. And so, it's kind of an advantage for everyone. But I think, I was just on set yesterday. We're shooting some new social content and some new video content, and it's a super fun environment to have pets around and be able to engage with them and have them give feedback on the treats themselves, right? Like, it was crazy to see the model kind of open the bag and the dog just ran over because he smelled it, and I think that's always a good sign for us as well.
I mean, that sounds like the most fun day. Like, you can just pop up, sit and play with all these dogs.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So in terms of, I mean, I guess thinking towards kind of like the tone that you all are going for, I feel like it's so easy and seamless almost to hit that happy tone. But while you're also trying to, obviously you wouldn't take a serious tone, but trying to educate still and really show that you all are serious about providing high quality human grade treats. Like, how do you hit that fun tone? I think you guys kind of nail it on your website, but it's that fun but still educational tone that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's a balancing act for us. I think you'll find like a lot of our copy we're a little light and playful and casual. I think when it comes to educating, we do get a little bit more serious in tone, but we still want to use like all the bright colors and visuals and kind of be light and playful, and visually, even though some of those topics are serious. So I think it is a balancing act that we try to strike, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of it so far, and we'll continue to kind of explore how do we maintain our fun tone while educating consumers on a pretty serious topic.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I mean, building off of that, how do you kind of take that same tone of voice and start to reach out to other consumers for new customer acquisition? I mean, like you said, you seem to have that younger millennial generation on lock, and they're buying into what you guys are selling. They want the best quality for their pets. But, people who have, like, let's say my parents, if they've had pets their whole lives, how do you kind of get them to switch and say, like, we've been doing this for so long and our pets are fine? How do you get that mindset to shift a little bit?
Yeah, making sure we're communicating our values and finding the people that our values line up with. I'm not necessarily trying to convince somebody who isn't going to buy into our values to come and purchase our product. And so it really is just, we know who our customer is. And I think, a little bit of it is educating people on what they don't know. Like, I don't think a lot of people do understand that most pet foods and pet treats use feed grade ingredients. And so we want to make sure we're telling that story in a way that doesn't
Brad, are you there?
Did I lose you, Sarah?
Yeah, I got you back.
I'm sorry.
No worries at all. Do you mind just repeating the last part of what you were saying?
Yeah, I think it's just, we're trying to educate people in a matter-of-fact way about kind of what traditionally has been done in the pet world and how we're taking a different approach to it. But ultimately, like, not everyone's values are going to align. So we know that our consumer target is going to be that younger person, and that's whose values align with ours right now.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And then, kind of circling back to one of the earlier points, you talked about the Purdue mothership. Have you how did you kind of start building your first party consumer base from the dog treat side? Did you tap into all the information they have as like a long standing company, or did you guys kind of just pave your own path from the beginning?
We really paved our own path in the beginning. We kind of went out and started collecting that data ourselves as we launched our D2C platform. I think now we are kind of working closely with their team. They also launched a D2C marketplace at the same time we did, and so what we found through kind of their first party data and surveying some of their consumers is that like an overwhelming % of their consumers have dogs. And so that there's this opportunity to kind of cross-sell on their marketplace. And so that is something that we've recently done is we've launched our pet treats on PurdueFarms.com in an effort to kind of capture that consumer and make sure that, we're able to kind of tell the story of Purdue and kind of show up on Purdue's site and capture and engage consumer over there.
That's such a fascinating correlation that the Purdue like human quality food and the human grade treats, there's such a strong correlation there.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a fun. We just launched on their site probably a month ago, so it's been fun to kind of see the crossover and the amount of people who are really engaged with the Full Moon brand on Purdue Farms. So we're excited about what that future can look like.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And that's kind of like almost full circle. Like you guys said, the pet division is such like a siloed, almost startup environment. And then you have this like massive brand to lean on and work together with. I feel like it's a really unique position in the market.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to that, right? Like as we scale our D2C brand or D2C channel, there's a lot more tolerance for the profitability and making sure that, of course, long term we want to be profitable, but at the same time we see this as an investment in our customer and building that relationship, just like Kellogg's is looking at it. We know that there's value in that relationship, and we know that a ton of our business is still on the retail side, and it's just about using our platform to educate, to bring new products that maybe aren't available in retail yet. So using it as a testing ground. There's a lot of these kind of indirect benefits of having the D2C platform, and as a part of this slow startups, they're trying to be profitable. Just hard to do given current acquisition costs.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So I'm going to shift over to some audience Q&A. First question is, what can heritage brands learn from newer digital first brands when it comes to authentically marketing to Gen Z? So is it just TikTok? Like, what do we do here?
Yeah, just get on TikTok. I think that's it. No, I mean, I think I think the tough thing is, heritage brands have been telling a story for a very long time. And Gen Z consumers are like just starting to hear those stories. And so they haven't grown up necessarily, engaging with that or seeing it. And I think heritage brands who have struggled to kind of reassess their values and make sure that they align with this new generation are really going to struggle. But I look at brands like Patagonia, who that they have, and they're doing super well with Gen Z, and they're not a cheap product, right? And they're able to, kind of stand for something. And so I think that's the importance. I think that's the thing that heritage brands need to pay attention to, is make sure that they're really standing for something that's bigger than just themselves and what's in it for the bottom line, but really like kind of showcasing those values and making sure that they're telling that story to a new generation.
Totally. And I think that's also the trap that a lot of heritage brands fall into play. Like, all of a sudden in the moment, they follow whatever like the bandwagon is and say, we support X, Y, and Z. But, 2 years ago, they never said anything. And then it comes off. I think Gen Z in particular are the first to scream authenticity and call brands on that. So I think it's also a tricky balance. Patagonia is a great example.
Yeah, I think what you said about authenticity is the critical part, right? Like that's the first thing we talk about, and anytime kind of culture shifts, or as we've seen over the last 6 months, like we talk about the content we're putting out on Instagram and making sure that it's relevant for the context that we're in. But the other thing is like make sure it's relevant for your brand and it makes sense. Like we don't want to be speaking on something that we shouldn't be a part of the conversation for. So like make sure you have a right to talk about that and be authentic, because if you're not, like Gen Z is the best at calling BS on it.
Yeah, they'll roast you on every platform.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I guess in terms of thinking towards 2021 and the COVID situation that we'll all probably see and virtual, how are you thinking of engaging and like connecting with your user base still with that cute dog content, but how do you kind of sever those differences or that distance right now that everyone's kind of feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is that there's this unique connection between humans and pets, and your pet is someone who's always there for you during the toughest time. So I think spending time with their pets, and having that kind of steady, steady thing in their life, that emotional connection has grown even stronger. And so for us, it's how do we tap into that and tell stories about how pets have helped humans kind of cope with some of the current issues, and how do we do that in an authentic way, and talk about, translating that relationship into the food that you give them, into the treats that you give them, because you want your pet to be there for you as long as possible. And, it starts with the things that they eat. And so that's the kind of interesting shift in the last 6 months that we've seen, is like tapping into that emotional connection. Those emotional connections becoming stronger allows us to actually tell a story about why it's important to choose human grade or really high quality pet food.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess in your opinion then, is it that that COVID's shifted the way D2C brands think about going to market, or has it just accelerated what everyone's been, planning and thinking towards? And this is kind of what the Kellogg's guy was talking about earlier, but was this on the roadmap and now you're just like, oh God, we got to put it into action? Like, how are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we did launch our D2C platform prior to COVID, but you're right. It's accelerated kind of our strategy, and on the retail side too, like e-tail, Amazon, Chewy have really gone wild, and so we're shifting the way we think about our retail partners and how we spend money and where we drive traffic, and so definitely great. But it's always been part of the roadmap. And like I said, the first and foremost benefit for us is having that customer relationship and having a direct access to the consumers who are buying our products, so that we can talk to them about what they care about, understand how they'd react to new products or different claims and things like that. Use it sort of as a testing ground. So I think for us, even though it's accelerated kind of the shift in purchasing to an online platform, it's something we've always kind of wanted to do, and had our.
Yep, that makes sense, and that's an awesome plan that it was able to launch right before COVID.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it grow much faster than we had predicted, which is great. So we're, every month I'm adjusting our models and making sure we're keeping an eye on the numbers and adjusting the path forward.
Yeah, for sure. And then just to feed into our last question, in terms of, and you kind of touched on this with the models, but how are you determining where to spend time on emerging technologies? Are you anticipating or like taking into account any, I don't want to say like drop off when COVID ends, but how are you kind of thinking through all of that, and when's the right time to invest in tech?
Yeah, I think I think it's always a conversation for us on like, when is the right time to invest in technology. And I think for us, like D2C is a core pillar, and even though COVID has accelerated things, it was a core pillar prior to that. And so we know we want to invest in the platform and make sure that we have the right tools. And that we're trying to figure out how do we get that data, and for us, we got to invest in the technology that's going to help us build those models accurately and ensure long-term success.
Cool. Yep, that makes sense with what we're hearing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it in terms of the Q&A. So thank you so much, Brad, and thank you, Brand Innovators and Matt, for hosting us today. I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, of course, and thank you, Sara. I tried to get my dog into the picture here, into the frame at the end of the session. I could not get him to cooperate. We are a Spot Farms family. We take the treats out of the package and put it in a treat jar for him, so I don't have the actual bag in for him. But he follows you. His account on Instagram follows the Spot Farms family. So
awesome.
You've got a good follower, a loyal follower. Coda Bentley, at Coda Bentley, is a Havanese, black and white, very cute. But I'm also glad to hear that you guys are able to be on set again and do some shoots. We had our first one last week. We actually were doing something for a children's product, and we had child actors. You were on set with dogs. I was on set with children. Together, we've broken the #1 rule of Hollywood, which is never work with pets or kids. Right? So,
yeah, and I've done
easier
for my career as well.
Yeah, well, we didn't have to get we had to get our kids tested for COVID. I'm sure you did not for your dogs on set.
That's correct, yeah.
Well, thank you guys, Brad and Sara, for closing out today's session, the live cast on D2C marketing. We are all so grateful for the speakers that joined us today. I know I personally took a lot out of each session, and just excited to spend more money on all of your products. I hope you will join us tomorrow at noon Eastern for another live cast on influencer marketing with our partners at Influential. We're going to be joined by senior marketers from MeUndies, Walmart, The Cheesecake Factory, Just Fab, and many more. So thank you all for joining, and hope to see you again